IPEC, seconded Councillor Tyson. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Item 4 on the agenda is the declarations of conflicts of interest. Councillors, would anyone like to declare a conflict? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll declare a general conflict of interest in item 9.4 for reasons previously disclosed to the CEO in writing before the commencement of the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Nation. Any other councillor? Councillor Hodgson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would also like to declare a general conflict of interest in 9.4 for reasons previously disclosed in writing to the CEO. Thank
you. Councillor Reiser.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to also declare a general conflict in item 9.4 for reasons previously disclosed in writing to the CEO. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor? No. Item 5 on the agenda is presentations. Councillors, do we have any presentations tonight? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to note before we meet again on the 12th of July, we will have held NIDOC Week, or celebrated NIDOC Week, which runs from the 3rd to the 10th of July. Council is committed to our reconciliation journey, and there are a number of activities and events that will occur during the week. We have an annual flag raising ceremony, which will be at the Avondale Heights Library and Learning Centre on Wednesday the 6th of July. There's a film screening of Firestarter at the Avondale Heights Library and Learning Centre on Friday the 8th of July. For the kids, there's a Kinder Dreaming Art and Story Time led by Aboriginal community members. They're occurring on a number of different dates and a number of locations, so please check the Moonee Valley website. There's an author discussion, the book Black and Blue by Veronia Gorry. That's at Sam Merrifield Library on Tuesday the 12th of July. A film screening and a director question and answer of the film Ablaze. That's going to be at Sam Merrifield Library on Tuesday the 12th of July. And then there's also a range of different online activities, and we will be streaming our annual flag raising ceremony as well. So please check the Moonee Valley website. Obviously NIDOC Week, a great time to celebrate and recognise the history, culture and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and a shout out to our great staff for making events like that happen. Thank you, Mayor.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Nation. Any other presentations tonight? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. As we all know, it's been a difficult couple of years, especially for small business. So it's exciting to see some wonderful new businesses opening up across the municipality. A few new awesome hospitality venues have opened up in the past few months in Moonee Ponds, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to give them a shout out. So we have Sunny Boy Coffee Roasters on Mount Alexander Road, a cafe who roast their own coffee beans that you can take home. They also sell some pretty cool merch, which is what I'm wearing tonight. Get Nourished on Puckle Street, who offer guilt-free smoothies and iced teas. I had one of their smoothies today, and they were great. Parko Ramen on Hall Street. I haven't been there yet, but they've had some pretty good write-ups on Broadsheet and Urban Lists, which is good to see in our local area. And Kinkura Japanese on Hall Street, which I went to on Sunday, and they have $39 all-you-can-eat Japanese. So highly recommend that one. And with lettuce costing $11 a head, it's probably cheaper to head out for dinner. So I encourage you all to get out and support our local businesses.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other presentations tonight? Councillor Reiser.
Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to report that the CEO, Helen Swee, and myself attended the Municipal Association of Victoria State Council meeting on Friday. Those gatherings are a representation of all of the councils, of the 79 councils across Victoria, and a range of different motions are put to the gathering to vote on for advocacy on behalf of the sector to largely the state government. A range of different motions were put forward, many of which are regional issues, and it's always interesting to see what issues are affecting regional rural councils. Moonee Valley didn't put any particular motions forward at this particular state council, but there were a range of issues that were relevant to us, mental health advocacy, some planning advocacy, and funding from the state government for a range of things that we'll probably speak about with respect to our council plan tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Reiser. Any other presentations? No. Item 6 is petitions and joint letters. I don't believe we have any, councillors. No, so we'll move to item 7, which is public question time, and we have received one question this evening. The question is from Robert Thompson. which reads, can Council please supply all costs for Weekend Away in Canberra in June 2022 for the 7-person delegation? Once again, I feel this is hard-earned ratepayers' money wasted in these very hard times everyone is going through. And I'll refer to the CEO, who I mentioned before, is zooming in on the screen for a response. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Through the Mayor, all the expenses for councillors who attended the 2022 National General Assembly, AGA, will be included in the Q4 Council Expenses Report, which will be presented to a future council meeting. It should be noted that the AGA is a national local government conference with more than 1,100 representatives attending from local government sector across Australia. It is an important professional development and advocacy opportunity for local government to engage directly with the federal government to develop national policy and to influence the future direction of our councils and our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO, and thank you, Robert, for your question. Item 8 on the agenda is the reports from delegates. Were there any, which I note that Councillor Isa said your last one under presentations, but that's okay. That's a great presentation. Were there any other reports from delegates? No. We will move on to item 9 on the agenda, which item 9.1, which is the adoption of the 22-23 Budget and Asset Plan 2022. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Mayor, I'd like to move an alternative motion.
Thank you, Councillor Isa.
If someone doesn't mind just following the screen as I'm reading to make sure that I'm in sync with that, thank you. That Council resolves to A, adopt the budget 2022 to 23 attached as item 1 in accordance with section 90...
Attachment 1.
Oh, sorry, as attached as attachment 1, thank you, in accordance with section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020, subject to the following changes. 1, allocate $653,000 to a tennis infrastructure reserve to fund upgrades to council-owned tennis infrastructure, informed by the updated Tennis Facility Renewal Action Plan. 2, defer the $1,543,000 funding for Lebanon Reserve Sports Field upgrade to the 2023 to 24 budget. 3, allocate $820,000 funding for Strathnava Sports Field upgrade works, including the remaining $88,379,000 funding from the 2021-22 Sporting Ground Infrastructure Fund. 4, reallocate $50,000 funding from the Shelter Renewal Program in brackets replacement and renewal of electronic scoreboards and timekeeper boxes, close brackets, to the Sports Field Flood Light Upgrade Program. 5, reallocate $100,000 of funding from the Maribyrnong River Cultural Precinct Master Plan to the 2023 to 24 budget. 6, additional funds of $400,000 funding to the Community Climate Emissions Reduction Reserve. 7, allocate $50,000 funding for a high-level opportunities assessment to identify the potential amenity and integrated water management benefits and opportunities of the Airport West reach of Steel Creek. 8, allocate $20,000 for planning and feasibility for drainage works at Maribyrnong Park. No, then we move to B. B, ensure that all decisions for the expenditure of funds in the Community Climate Emissions Reduction Reserve will be made by resolution of Council. C to J are per the officer's recommendation. Would you like me to read those?
I think so.
Yep. C, adopt the Asset Plan 2022 attached as attachment 2 in brackets in accordance with section 92(6) of the Local Government Act 2020, D, declare the rates and annual service charges for the 2022 to 23 rating year commencing 1st of July 2022 and ending 30 June 2023 as detailed in the budget 2022 to 23 in accordance with section 94 2E and H of the Local Government Act 2020. E, write to the Department for Transport and local members for Parliament, in brackets the Honourable Danny Pearson MP and the Honourable Ben Carroll MP, close brackets, advising of the community budget submissions relating to issues associated with state arterial roads and seeking investigation and consideration of these matters raised by the community. F, note the summary of the submissions received, in brackets attached as attachment 3, and the detailed list of submissions received, in brackets attached as attachment 4, close brackets, prepared on behalf of the Hearing of Submissions Forum. G, advise all submitters that Council has considered their submissions relating to the draft budget 22-23, thank them for their contributions and advise them of the outcome of the consideration as it relates to their specific submission. H, declare a rebate in relation to rates of $20 to each owner of rateable land who is an eligible recipient within the meaning of the State Concessions Act 2004. I, delegate the Chief Executive Officer to make any administrative changes as required to the Budget 22-23 and Asset Plan 2022. J, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of the decision to adopt the budget. And K, note the Italian pensioners' submission to the budget and request officers to write and call this group to advise of the grant application process when the next applicable grant round opens.
Thank you, Councillor Isaac. Can I just get a thumbs up from governance? Just that was correct with what you've got. You got the words there? So just in item 8, Councillor Isaac, A8, if you can just repeat that one.
Allocate $20,000 for the planning and feasibility for drainage works at Maribyrnong Park.
Thank you. And everything else was clear. We've got that as per on the screen. Councillors, we're all comfortable with what's been moved. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isaac, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Months of work goes into setting our annual budget, primarily by officers, and we are very grateful for the tireless work of, and I will name a few, Damien, Helen, the two Bens and Sanjib and their many colleagues. Their attention to detail, to patiently taking councillors through all of our queries, is admirable and greatly appreciated. Now, I voted against the draft budget a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, as I was and remain concerned about our long-term financial situation and what some decisions might mean for that. We started our council term with minimal debt and will end the next financial year with $30 million in borrowings. Although an argument can solidly be made about the necessity of borrowing to invest in intergenerational infrastructure. For example, most of these borrowings are supporting the construction of the much-needed Flemington Hub. My concerns about financial sustainability, however, are shared across the local government sector. Concerns about the increasing costs for local government and the reduced income, primarily from the state and federal governments, and the results of rate capping. While no one likes rate rises, the current cap at 1.75% makes it very difficult for council to keep up with CPI, let alone inflation, rising construction costs and wage increases. The sector as a whole is under extreme financial pressure. Federally, grants to local government have slipped to 0.5% of the total Commonwealth revenue at the federal level, tax revenue, sorry. The sector has mounted a strong campaign to bring this to 1%, and much of our efforts in Canberra last week were hearing about the importance of the advocacy that ALGA is doing in regard to increasing the untied financial assistance grants to local government. As a council, we want to deliver for you, the community, the services and projects that you need and want, and we are doing our very best to be creative, to find revenue sources and to do more with less. The motion I've moved tonight tries to meet some of these needs and expectations, although it is impossible to meet all of them. We've got it to a point that I am happy to move the budget tonight, despite my misgivings 6 weeks ago. Although in keeping with my comments at the draft budget, I will be keeping a watching brief over the financial sustainability in our long-term capital projections. I'm going to speak to the motion specifically to the changes at this point, and hope that colleagues might speak to the budget more generally in the debate. So just to go through, and I know it's really hard for people watching online to hear each one of those changes as they're read, so I'm just going to go through them again really briefly. The first change was to allocate $650,000 to a tennis infrastructure reserve. We have a tennis plan that we endorsed last November. We've heard from our tennis community about the difficulty they have resurfacing courts. There's an action plan attached to that particular tennis plan, and we look forward to the funding assisting with that. We are deferring one of the sports fields upgrades, but instead we're going to do Strathnava Sports Field. We've heard from the club about the necessity and essential urgency of that. We are allocating some funds to electronic scoreboards and to lighting. We've had the lighting audit back. We know which grounds are in the greatest need. And I'll just speak briefly now to the Community Climate Emissions Reduction Reserve. We're putting an additional $400,000 in that reserve, bringing it to $700,000. We received 24 submissions, over 80 pages of submissions, 13 letters of support, asking us to do more on climate. We know that this doesn't meet that the request of $20 per person that was put to us. It's the best we can do at this point. We know that at ALGA, climate change was heralded as critical. We know that over the next 20 to 30 years, I might just ask for 30 seconds if that's okay, and we heard at ALGA that the costs of natural disasters will increase from $38 billion to $94 billion in the next 30 years. We know that climate change is increasing the intensity and frequency of natural disasters. We know that we are not sufficiently mitigating climate change and that our actions are essential. This is a more than doubling of that $300,000 that we had in, and I hope that it goes some way to meeting those opportunities that have been set out in the expert report. And I thank colleagues for their support for that increase. I'll leave it there for now. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Isa. And just for consistency, I'll give everyone an extra 30 seconds if you choose to take it. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Isa, and all councillors for working on this alternative. I just wanted to reiterate thanks to our team in Council for all of the work that went into this. It not only is a budget, obviously, for this year, but the forecast for the next 3 years. There was a lot of work that went into making sure that this council term is financially sustainable and balanced in the long run. We know that our community has needs beyond those that we can afford, so it's a really tough job to have. In this budget, though, there are some really significant wins, and I think it delivers for a whole lot, all aspects of our community. So we have, as Councillor Isers mentioned, a significant borrowing that is going towards the Flemington Hub, a project that was committed to by our previous council, but one that I'm really proud of being a part of the council that it will deliver on. It's a much needed community hub, and I hope it will set the standard for how we deliver integrated services and foster community connection in our neighbourhoods. On top of this, there's a lot of money going into a delivery of essential services, into investing in local roads and active transport paths, drainage improvements, new playgrounds and playground renewals, and updates and upgrades for our sporting infrastructure and other assets. We have, as was resolved by Council in a recent meeting, a couple of new maternal child health rooms that will be built in a new kindergarten in Essendon in partnership with the state government. Streetscape improvements for a number of our business precincts. We hear from our traders associations all the time about how this is really critical to support their growth and our community getting out and supporting local businesses. There's tree planting investment to help us to reach our canopy target. And as Councillor Isers mentioned, we're putting additional funds into our community climate emission reduction reserve. A number of the submissions that we received from the community have been looked at, and our alternative here addresses a number of those. As Councillor Isers mentioned, the tennis fund. There's $50,000 also for a high-level opportunities assessment into the management of Steel Creek, which is hopefully something that will help us to kickstart with the community some great developments and improvements for that waterway. And a number of submissions that came to us for climate have been listened to. I know it doesn't quite hit the mark of what the ask was from the community, but there are a number of ways throughout.
Would you like an extra 30 seconds?
Thank you. A number of ways through our operational budget that we are also trying to address the climate emergency. What I hear from the submissions is that we need to also take a leadership role to help our community reduce their emissions. So that's why the additional money into that reserve is a really important addition. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me first start off by saying I'm disappointed and I'm pleased with this budget. Now, let me start off with the disappointment part first. I'm disappointed that we've only got $400,000 for the environment in this budget. I wanted to see more, Madam Mayor. I really wanted to see more in this. But with the canopies, infrastructure that's going to go around all the sporting fields, it's a little win for us as well. But hopefully in the future, I'm going to present something to Council, and if it's possible, that every person in Moonee Valley, there'll be a $20, beg your pardon?
Councillors, thank you.
There will be a $20 allocation for every person in Moonee Valley. And that's a proposal coming to Council hopefully in the very near future, Madam Mayor. That's the only disappointment that I've got, that the environment's hasn't got extra money there. But on a good side, what we're doing here, Madam Mayor, is we're using this budget very, very gracefully across a lot of different sectors within Moonee Valley. Tennis, football, soccer, all sorts of other sports are all getting a slice of the pie, and I'm very, very pleased about that. I'm very pleased that a lot of groups are going to feel the benefits of this budget, and we've done it within our scopes. And let's be realistic about this, Madam Mayor. For every tax dollar that a person pays in Australia, 69 cents goes to the federal government, 28 cents goes to the state government, and 3 cents comes to local government. And have a look what we do for 3 cents in the dollar, Madam Mayor, without any help from the states, without any help from the feds, or look, maybe a little bit of help from the feds, but and I'm hoping to see a little bit more of help from the feds. That would be nice. And look, I'm being optimistic about the state government as well too, but I'm not holding my breath. So that's why this budget is really good. Moonee Valley has done a great job. I commend the CEO, I commend the officers, and I commend you, my colleagues, for putting this budget together. I think this is probably one of the best budgets I've seen over my 20 years at Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Any other councillor? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. As a councillor group, we have all worked really hard on this budget, from scrutinising officer recommendations, consultation and communication with community groups, advocacy work and reviewing of budget submissions.
Sorry, Councillor Adams, can you just make sure your mic's on?
It is.
Yep.
Maybe I need to...
Maybe swing that one in as well.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Councillor Adams.
All right,
Sorry.
thank you. This was reflected in the level of community engagement experienced with 56 responses and submissions received. I want to thank everybody who took the time to go through this process. The effort from our community to advocate for their diverse needs is really admirable, and I thank you all. On our council website, you can find a summary of the submissions along with the issues raised and officers' comments. The budget has been prepared in accordance with financial management principles and council's community engagement policy, while trying to balance service provision and capital works delivery. The budget process has been rigorous and challenging while being fiscally responsible. Our community is growing at a rapid rate. Our council assets require ongoing maintenance that are costly, and our needs as residents is constantly changing and evolving. So it is extremely challenging as a council to weigh up the competing needs of our community and the priorities that are identified so that we can proactively protect existing assets as well as invest in and deliver new assets that enhance our public spaces, including our roads, footpaths, facilities, infrastructure, open spaces and sporting facilities. I'll just also speak to the asset plan, which is what we're adopting tonight. The asset plan informs the community on how the council-controlled infrastructure assets are to be managed to achieve the community vision and supporting our council plan objectives. The purpose of the asset plan is to improve the transparency around asset value and performance and the type of infrastructure assets under council management. It also helps to better align decisions around assets to community needs, service levels and standards, and financial sustainability, and helps us to articulate and communicate the challenges on service levels, costs, risks, and the considerations for decisions made. I agree with Councillor Sypek. We've done a really good job with this budget, and there's some exciting projects that we're delivering. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other councillor? Councillor Tyson.
Thanks, Mayor. And I think for myself, I'm really keen to talk about mine, yourself and Councillor Sypek's ward of Rosehill and some of the projects that are happening this year. So we've got stage 1 of the Quingrove precinct in terms of planning and relocation of assets. We've got the Overland Reserve car park, works at Rosehill Park, delivering the upgrades to Keilor Road, Nidri, Centreway upgrades and beautification, Hanson Reserve lighting. So I think for our ward, there's a lot here to be proud of, and I think over the last 7 months of work for us, I'm really glad that everyone seems to be on the same page and that we're absolutely getting there tonight, and there's no curveballs. I think as well something that I'm really pleased by is increased fees on planning permits on developments of over 3 dwellings and 10 plus as well. That's something that I'm really glad to have contributed to this budget, and I think there's a lot to be proud of for residents of Rosehill. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Any other councillor? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment.
Sure.
A new point 9, if my Roman numerals are correct.
A9, yep.
Yes, A9, which will read, amend the endorsed draft budget transfer station fees and charges as follows, and then open brackets to be labelled attachment 5, close brackets. Now I'll read out those charges which would then become attachment 5, which is what I've been advised to do. Polystyrene and cardboard bootload, resident $0, non-resident commercial $40. Polystyrene and cardboard station wagon, resident $0, non-resident commercial $60. Polystyrene and cardboard trailer, resident $0, non-resident / commercial $80. Cardboard bootload, resident $0, non-resident commercial $40. Cardboard station wagon, resident $0, non-resident commercial $60. Cardboard trailer, resident $0, non-resident commercial $80. Polystyrene bootload, resident 0, non-resident / commercial $40. Polystyrene station wagon, resident $0, non-resident commercial $60. Polystyrene trailer, resident $0, non-resident / commercial $80. Gas bottles, resident $0, non-resident / commercial $25. Mattress, single, double, queen or king size, resident $40, non-resident / commercial $80. Tyre, car, resident $25, non-resident commercial $25. Tyre, large truck or tractor, resident $75, non-resident / commercial $75. Tyre, light truck, resident $50, non-resident / commercial $50. Tyre, small truck, resident $50, non-resident commercial $50. Motor oil, resident $0, non-resident commercial $10. E-waste, resident $0, non-resident commercial $10. Unseparated waste surcharge, bootload, resident $50, non-resident / commercial $100. Green waste, bootload, resident $0, non-resident / commercial $50. Green waste station wagon, resident $0, non-resident / commercial $75. Green waste single trailer heaped load, resident $75, non-resident commercial $125. Green waste single trailer high sides, resident $125, non-resident commercial $175. Green waste single trailer utility or van, resident $50, non-resident / commercial $100. Green waste tandem trailer, resident $125, non-resident commercial $175. Green waste tandem trailer heaped load, resident $150, non-resident commercial $200. Green waste tandem trailer high sides, resident $275, non-resident / commercial $325. Pensioner discount of $5 to apply to residents for those green waste charges. And finally, hard waste, bootload, resident $25, non-resident / commercial $75. Hard waste station wagon, resident $50, non-resident / commercial $100. Hard waste single trailer heaped load, resident $150, non-resident / commercial $200. Hard waste single trailer high sides, resident $275, non-resident / commercial $325. Hard waste single trailer utility or van, resident $100, non-resident / commercial $150. Hard waste tandem trailer, resident $175, non-resident / commercial $225. Hard waste tandem trailer heaped load, resident $275, non-resident / commercial $325. Hard waste tandem trailer high sides, resident $550, non-resident / commercial $600, and pensioner discount of $5 per line item, applicable to residents only for those hard waste charges.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. And can I just get a thumbs up from governance that got that table? Beautiful. Okay, and so moved by Councillor Nation for that amendment. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Bettio? Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you. You don't need me to read it again, we're good?
Oh, I just no.
Look, I want to start by thanking officers. Obviously, there's a fair bit of work that has gone into this amendment over the past week or so, because changing any fee at the transfer station obviously has an impact on expected or predicted revenue, and it's not as simple as taking off an amount and taking off the expected number of units that would be recycled, because then obviously if you're changing a fee to free, then there'd be a greater uptake. So there has been a large degree of work done by officers to formulate this position, which doesn't have a huge impact on council's budget, and which follows some key principles. So in coming up with these alternative charges, there were a few things that I was looking to do. One of them was that we didn't want any changes to have an impact on the municipal charge. The municipal charge is a fee, a levy if you like, that's on every rateable property, and it's really important that in moving tonight's budget, that municipal charge doesn't doesn't change. If that did change, then we'd have to re-advertise the budget. We wouldn't have to move it tonight. So it was really important that that municipal waste charge, these changes had no impact. And then obviously we wanted to make sure the financial impact on the budget was minimal, because as councillors have already spoken in the more substantive, we're in a rate capping environment, and we really want to ensure that we're not leaving or not entering some financial instability. The key principles that we're trying to achieve with these fees, which obviously changed from the draft budget, firstly was I felt it's really important that we encourage people to recycle. So the draft budget, and I spoke about it on the night of the draft budget, it looked to introduce a first time ever charge to residents who wanted to recycle polystyrene, cardboard, e-waste, motor oil, and a range of, even a bootload of green waste, things that have always been free for residents to recycle. We're obviously, and even through our Climate Change Emissions Fund, putting a lot of money into encouraging residents to do the right thing. And one of those right things is not putting polystyrene in the yellow bin, as you're not allowed to do, and driving that down to the transfer station so it can be recycled. Now, if people are willing to change habit and do that, the last thing we want to do is then say, oh, this year you've got to pay $10 or $40 for a bootload to recycle. So by trying to encourage recycling, we don't want there to be a cost barrier for people to do the right thing. I also, in this amendment, wanted to ensure that there was a delineation between residents and non-residents and commercial operators. And one of the things that, through working through these fees and charges, that I noticed was that a lot of other transfer stations, such as Hume to our north, or Brimbank or Wyndham, they do have a residents set of charges and a non-residents. And the real reason they do that is because we are subsidising through our municipal waste charge as either residents, ratepayers, or even renters, because let's factor it in to your rent. We're subsidising the operation of that transfer station. So in essence, that transfer station needs to be able to cater to our residents primarily. So the fact that if someone's doing a spring clean at home and they've got a bootload of waste and they're driving down to the transfer station to recycle or drop that waste off, the fact that they're paying the same price as someone who might be driving from Dandenong or the other side of the city, running a business and wants to drop off waste, it doesn't really sit right with me. And other councils, as I've said, Hume, Brimbank, Wyndham, they do have that difference. So these charges will be the first time that we've actually got a charge for residents and a charge for non-residents and commercial. The other thing that I was really wanted to retain was ensuring that our resident pensioners continue to get a discount. Now, there are a few items in the draft budget where they weren't, so look, it's only a $5 discount, but again, people who are willing to do the right thing and not just chuck everything in the red bin and drive down or walk down or however they get to the transfer station to recycle with pre-sorted waste, which is really important. We don't want to discourage that, because more people recycling, there may be a cost to us and a cost of recovery, but the actual benefit for our community is going to be much greater. So I think through the motion, the amendments, and speaking now, I've probably taken about 10 minutes, so I'll leave it at that, and I hope other councillors share the same views as me and will support these changes. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Bedio, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have much more to add on top of what Councillor Nation said, but so I'd like to say well done to Councillor Nation for putting this amendment together. I think it's really, it's a common sense amendment, and I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak on the amendment? No, Councillor Nation? No. I will put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? And that amendment is carried unanimously. We'll now move back to the substantive. Councillor Nation, did you want to finish talking on the substantive?
Look, I hadn't commenced yet, and I'll just reserve my right for now.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak on the substantive? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to say a massive well done to officers and the councillor colleagues for their work in putting this budget together. It is quite a long process, as we all know. One thing I did want to touch on, though, is there has been some commentary about the $20 per head or $20 per resident around combating climate change and supporting the environment. I do want to point out that obviously while we do have our community emissions reduction fund, council already has a lot of initiatives built into the existing budget that go some way to supporting and mitigating on climate change. So I just wanted to point a few of those out. So if you bear with me 2 seconds. I know a lot of the discussion was around active transport in particular. And we have $893,000 put in for improved walking and cycling paths across the city, including installing a pedestrian operated crossing at Ascot Vale Road in Ascot Vale as part of the Craigieburn train line active travel path. We also have $325,000 put in for solar panels on Ascot Vale Leisure Centre, and $1 million budgeted for the increase in planting of trees. So when you incorporate those funds alongside the emissions reduction fund, you have about $2.9 million, and that's just the start. There is a lot more in the budget that works towards mitigating climate change. So I think we need to look at the budget as a whole. There's a lot of really important and worthwhile projects in there. So I encourage everyone to have a look at the budget once it's endorsed, and have a look through. On top of that, I just want to say I'm really excited to have included the Maribyrnong River Cultural Precinct Plan. I really feel that space, the river frontage at the Maribyrnong River is a jewel in our crown, but it's underactivated. I think there's a lot more that we could do with that space to really get the most out of it. We have the incinerator gallery there. It's a beautiful landscape. I'd love to get a little bit more arts and culture embedded into that landscape. So I'm really excited to see how that master plan eventuates and what officers can do with such a substantial amount of money for a master plan. And I'll look forward to seeing that develop across the next year or so. But with that, I don't have anything further to add. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other councillor? Councillor Nation.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move another amendment to Part A1 of the motion, and that will read, Part A1 in its entirety will read, allocate $653,000 to a tennis infrastructure reserve to fund upgrades to council-owned tennis infrastructure informed by the updated tennis facility renewal action plan, and commencing with Essendon Tennis Club, courts 7 to 10 to a maximum of $350,000. Avondale Heights Tennis Club, courts 5 and 6 to a maximum of $250,000. And Duda Gala Tennis Club, courts 1 and 2 to a maximum of $53,000.
Thank you, Councillor Nation.
Mayor, I'd like to declare a conflict in that alternative, please, due to a family relationship.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp, if you'd like to step out of the room. Councillor Nation, your amendment has been moved. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Adams. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thanks, Mayor. And look, I firstly just want to commend the fact that councillors have put or allocated in the substantive $653,000 to a tennis infrastructure reserve. Tennis is obviously a widely played game, and the reality with some of the facilities in our city is that there is ageing infrastructure, both pavilions but also the courts. And some of the courts within our city have got to a point where they're barely playable, and we had a report that came to council, I think in November last year, which indicated that there were some courts and facilities that were nearing end of life. Now, particularly when you look at the cohorts that play tennis, so young kids right through to the seniors. My poor mum Beryl had a little stack on a tennis court which was asphalt and split her head open, and she probably won't like me bringing that up, but a good example of courts she was playing on were old, they were asphalt surface, and it actually meant she gave away playing tennis. I'm not saying that the courts that we've got in our city are of that bad a standard, but the important thing is that we ensure they're playable right through to a decent competition standard, but also they're just safe for everyone who wants to play tennis to use. So Really commend the $653,000, and I want to see through this amendment to get the ball rolling with 3 different projects. Now, the Essendon Tennis Club, courts 7 to 10, they're sinking. There's 4 courts. They service most of the play at the tennis club, and the concrete slab underneath is sinking so much some of the light poles are on an awkward lean. So this will allocate a maximum of $350,000 to redoing those courts 7 to 10. That was also highlighted in that report that came to council at the end of last year. The Avondale Heights Tennis Club, similarly courts 5 and 6 to a maximum of $250,000. And Doodagala Tennis Club, which not everyone in the city will know, it's tucked up on Kerford Street in Essendon North, a really great community club with a long-serving committee and a small but committed membership. And this will see $53,000 to work on courts 1 and 2. I will indicate, I just wanted to advise as well that these 3 projects are outlined in that tennis plan of projects that need renewal. So it's not just picking things at random, they are needed. And hopefully, look, this will be a start of us looking to a whole range of different sports that are played in our city, not just pigeonholing things into team sports, but there's a lot of individual sports that probably haven't got as much love over the past decade or so from council, and some of them are due to the lease structures, etc. But I would love to see support for this amendment to get these projects running, which they're pretty much ready to go. Quotes have been done, engineering reports have been presented, and now they just need the funding to get the ball rolling. And I will note as well that the clubs that are mentioned here are willing to, I know the two that sit in Buckley Ward, Essendon Tennis Club and Doodagala, are also willing to contribute, which is great. It's one thing to come and say to council we need this done, but clubs who are doing some of that fundraising as well, as ever small as it may be, because not every club's the same size, we do appreciate that, because it just shows us that willingness from the whole membership to help contribute and I guess help get what we're trying to achieve, which is people playing the sport and facilities that are up to scratch. And I'd commend this amendment to my fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Nation, for moving that amendment. I think this is a great amount of money to sort of kickstart some investment in our tennis clubs, and I'm excited and hope that our fellow colleagues will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Would anybody else like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Tyson.
Thanks, Mayor. And I think it's incredibly refreshing for all councillors to see nearly all of us sports speaking with one voice and on the same page and supporting each other in their advocacy. And I really thank all of the clubs who have advocated to us as a group, in writing, on an individual basis, having us out. This is really a great start for the sport, where traditionally the system was set up under a funding co-contribution model where clubs are responsible for their courts, and if you were starting the system from scratch today, you absolutely wouldn't set up the system how it is. And I think this is a really great start in fixing up what's been really an incredibly undervalued historically because of the model that's been set up. And with exponential increases in interest for tennis, with Ash Barty, with everything else, it's really great. And as a former tennis player in our local area, I'm really, really pleased to be supporting this. Thanks.
Sounds good, Councillor Tyson. Any other councillor like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Slapek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Once again, local democracy works. And the reason why it works is we have a little process called budget submissions. And this is the perfect example of how budget submissions work. Tennis clubs came to us with a budget submission, and we've managed to help them out. Soccer, Strathnaver Reserve, getting a new pitch. They came and did a budget submission. I think this is a process that a lot of our community probably knows that it's there, but hasn't used it to its full potential. And I think and I hope next year that we do get a lot more budget submissions, so then that way we can help as many community groups or the community in whole in a far better and more equitable way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Any other councillor? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to pick up on a couple of points that have already been raised by colleagues around how this is a really important way that we can support tennis and those clubs in our municipality that operate on the leased model. I think it's really significant that if we want to ensure that participation remains accessible for our community, that we don't encourage clubs to be driving up their participation fees in order to maintain their asset. I think that this is a recognition that we have a dual role to play in partnership with those community clubs to help make those sports accessible to everyone, and I'm really glad that the problem came to us and that we're addressing it. There is precedent in recent budgets for this sort of an arrangement, and it has resulted in reassessing the terms of the lease, and I'm sure that will happen in partnership with the clubs in this situation. But I do agree that this is deserves reconsideration, and am supportive of this. I just wanted to note as well that tennis is one of those sports that's really leading the way in terms of accessibility for all abilities and all genders, and I'm very happy to be supporting the growth of tennis in Moonee Valley.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other Councillor Isa?
Yes, thanks very much, Councillor Hodgson, for making those particular points. I think I recognise that the lease arrangements strictly put some limitations around the capital investment that council might make, but I think as a council we've taken a very realistic approach to that and recognised that clubs of a variety of different sorts are not always able to raise the capital that's required to make those rather large investments, and so I'm very happy to form those partnerships that Councillor Hodgson described so well. I think the other thing that I'm really pleased about with respect to this particular approach is that, and I wish this was an approach that was mirrored across a number of different types of sporting infrastructure, where we had last year a plan and a clear plan of prioritisation of which particular infrastructure is needing to be addressed and in which order. And so it's in that order that we've been able to then fund those changes. And as Councillor Tyson spoke about, I think that what that then, when we're able to demonstrate that rigorous process, it's supporting a very collaborative approach within the different clubs of that sporting code. And I do wish that this process, which I think is a very successful one, it was something that we were able to deliver across all codes, so that we didn't have a sense of competition that sometimes arises. So I'm pleased that we're able to assist the clubs in this way and thank them for their volunteer hours and their volunteer work in organising the participation. I note Councillor Hodgson's comments about the inclusivity of tennis. It really is leading the way in terms of gender and disability. Unfortunately for myself, my arms dislocate whenever I play tennis. So until we can develop tennis that doesn't require arms, I'm still not necessarily able to include myself, but I'm very delighted to support this approach.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor on the amendment? No, in that case, Councillor Nation, would you like to close on the amendment?
Look, I just wanted to thank councillors for their comments and for reinforcing that idea that the fund, or the reserve's a great step, but getting some projects named will enable the ball to get rolling, and for these clubs to hopefully be able to turn around some new courts, hopefully within the financial year. I also just wanted to obviously note the accessibility of the sport of tennis, and Councillor Isa, you brought up exactly, you look at some of those, the real icons of our tennis game right now. And Ash Barty's retired, but she's still an icon on Dylan Allcourt. You know, a disabled player, and a wheelchair sports player, and Ash Barty, who's an amazing female an Indigenous female doing amazing things. And tennis and from local right through to that top level should be extremely proud of the fact that it's a sport that anyone, even if they may have challenges, Rose, like Councillor Rose, like you, can pick up a racket and give it a go. Just a closing note on one of those projects, the Essendon Tennis Club. It's actually a club that's 139 years old, so it dates back to 1883. They actually played up at Windy Hill on the Essendon Reserve from about 1887 through to 1971. And then they moved from Windy Hill and merged with, I think it was Clifton Park Tennis or Aberfeldy Tennis Club at the time, to their current home at Clifton Park. So that's just over 50 years ago. A lot of the infrastructure, when you walk in, you can tell it's almost 50 years old. But it's just a great story, and we've got great history with our sporting clubs in this city. And us, as Councillor Tyson said, the situations have changed since maybe 1970 when an agreement was formed with council. So now and then we do need to step in and contribute, and I hope this goes some way to getting all three of those clubs and more tennis clubs to continuing well into the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Now, Councillor Nation, so now we'll put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Now, Councillor Nation, would you like to speak on the substantive?
Were we to get Councillor Sharp? No.
We
okay.
won't, as she now
That's
has
all
a
right.
conflict in the substantive.
Look, just very briefly, this would be the 10th budget as a councillor that I've been involved in, and I think that the point we've got to, where hopefully we've got 9 councillors all on a similar page to support something that's spread so far into our city. 8, yes, with one out of the room. You know what I'm saying, Councillor Sybeck. Spread so far into our city, and I think it acknowledges the amazing range of things that council does, like the adage that we're roads, rates and rubbish. Hey, look at our budget, have a look at the services we provide, have a look at how far we make that minimal money we collect go, and I think this is something that we can be proud of, and hopefully will continue to guide what we do as a city into the future. So again, would commend this now substantive to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. And with everyone speaking on it, I will now go back to you, Councillor Arthur, as the mover of the substantive for close.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I just want to make a couple of quick comments in closing, just some things that came up that I didn't mention earlier. I didn't get down earlier to point 8, which was the allocation of $20,000 for planning and feasibility for drainage works at Maribyrnong Park. That's was also in response to a submission. As Councillor Sybeck mentioned earlier, we do listen to those submissions and try our best to respond to them where we can, and hopefully that will assist with the spectator area there at Maribyrnong Park. Steel Creek was mentioned, and there's $50,000 for that particular submission as well. So I did want to just thank all submitters who brought their ideas to us. It's always terrific to hear what things are important to people, and to respond to those as best we can, and particularly to the climate emergency, the submissions on climate emergency. And I just do need to mention that we now have $700,000 in the climate emergency fund. We've got the $400 from tonight and $300 from the draft budget. So there's a total of $700,000. I think I said $700, $700,000 for that particular fund. I also just want to thank Councillor Nation for his waste amendments, particularly the keeping those charges at zero for recycling. I think that was a terrific addition for Councillor Nation to bring to this And I just wanted to quickly say also, with respect to the master planning, I do have some misgivings. We do have 35 master plans for parks at the moment. I'd love to see us put some money into those rather than necessarily continue to do master plans. And very lastly, I forgot to thank our acting CEO at the table here tonight, Brett, for his contribution as an officer to the work. And he often gets the really prickly questions, so thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Now, councillors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate point A out, and then after point A, as that is what Councillor Sharp's declared a conflict in, we'll then bring Councillor Sharp back in the room to be able to vote on the rest of the item. What I'll put to the vote is that Council resolves to A, adopt the budget 2022-23, in brackets attached as attachment 1, close bracket, in accordance with section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020, subject to the following changes. 1. Allocate $653,000 to a tennis infrastructure reserve to fund upgrades to council-owned tennis infrastructure informed by the updated tennis facility renewal action plan, and commence with ... Essendon Tennis Club courts 7 to 10, in brackets to a maximum of $350,000, close bracket. ... Avondale Heights Tennis Club courts 5 and 6, brackets to a maximum of $250,000, close brackets. And the third ... Dudagala Tennis Club courts 1 and 2, open brackets to a maximum of $53,000. Now, just before I put that to the vote, sorry. Yep. Sorry, we've just had a councillor just step out for one moment. I'm not going to defer at this point, but I'm mindful that it's the budget, and I want to make sure that I give every councillor an opportunity to be able to vote on what I think that they're going to vote on. So for those, we're just waiting. I think councillors around the room, are we all aware on what we are voting on? Every councillor is aware on what we are voting on. Great. So I will now put that to the vote as we are all back in here. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. If somebody can please invite Councillor Sharp back into the room. For those that are watching online, we are just waiting for Councillor Sharp to come back into the room, having declared a conflict of interest on one of the items. She will be coming back in, and I will ask when Councillor Sharp is back in, which shouldn't be too long. There hasn't been any requests to separate the motion, and it was not my intention in doing so, unless there is any wishes to. No. Councillor Sharp, you can absolutely come back in. Councillor Sharp, just so you know, we've already voted on A, and then A1, apologies. So we have not voted on A2 and lower, and then the plan now is to vote in one go on the rest of the budget from A2 and lower. Is everyone clear on what we're voting on? Okay, so I will not read it out. But as per on the screen that Council resolves to, from A to B, C, D, keep scrolling, E, F, G, H, I, J and K. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Well done, everybody. Moving on. Item 9.2, Council Plan and Health Plan Annual Initiatives 2022-2023. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
If you just give me 1 second, Mayor, I'll move the officer's recommendation with one small amendment, although I'm happy to move 2 small amendments. If you Okay, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with 2 small amendments, please.
Yep.
I'd like to move that council resolves to note and receive the report. I've got the wrong thing in front of me. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Resolves to adopt the 2022 to 23 council plan initiatives in attachment 1 with the following changes. A, T4.1 updated to finish the new arts and culture plan, including planning for and enabling a diverse nighttime economy, and begin action. And B, T 1.1 to updated to improve the streetscape along Keilor Road South Side in Niddrie and continue to work with City of Melbourne and other stakeholders for improvements in Racecourse Road, Flemington.
Okay, as per on the screen, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Isaac, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor, and I apologise with all the focus on the budget. We're lucky it's a short agenda, as other agenda items haven't had necessarily the time tonight that I should have perhaps given to preparing that particular amendment. I apologise. The council plan, or the report itself, sets out the annual council plan initiatives. People might remember that last year when we voted on the council plan, we had council initiatives for 21-22, which were drawn from the budget and set out the priority actions for the rest of the financial year. So what we're doing here is setting out the initiatives that match the particular strategies for the council plan for the next 12 months. Some of those are directly linked to budget items, and some of those are a bit more generalised and refer to ongoing things that the officers are working hard on. People can find this particular attachment, and it's quite in an accessible form. It goes through our different themes and then our different strategies under each theme. The 2 particular changes both feature under thriving, so T stands for thriving, and they're the two of the 4 particular initiatives under thriving. The first is a good example of how interconnected these initiatives in fact are, because T4.1, and I just can't remember the other thriving initiative, T1, are both in this particular amendment. The integration of those is really evident. One of them is about the economic development and particularly the nighttime economy. The other one is about arts and culture. Now, arts and culture is obviously much broader than nighttime economy. But it has a significant role to play in our restaurant and our after-hours life. And so this particular amendment demonstrates that real integration and helps us to continue to think about all of these things, not in their silos, but as a very connected council plan. The second amendment relates to streetscapes, and the reason that I've just suggested putting an additional reference to Racecourse Road there is because Racecourse Road is an awkward position in our municipality, in the sense that it's right on the boundary with City of Melbourne, and it serves both City of Moonee Valley and City of Melbourne. We've got the boundary that then runs around the laneway. What we really need in Racecourse Road is a a strong partnership with City of Melbourne, both in terms of funding, because we serve both communities, but also in terms of design and to get the structure plan through the neighbourhood implementation plans back on track, because it's been a decade in the wilderness in terms of work along Racecourse Road and the streetscape and the structure planning. And this is a priority for people in Flemington, and it's really important to me to keep this on our agenda in a prioritised way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll concur with Councillor Isa, but there's also some interesting and exciting projects that have been earmarked in the new council plan initiatives. So I thought I'd mention a few. Finish the Queen Grove Precinct plan in Keilor East, including design and documentation to move the existing soccer and tennis facilities and incorporate a new highball stadium. I know a lot of people will be excited about that one. Finish the new arts and culture plan and begin action. Begin delivering the Moonee Ponds Creek naturalisation project in Strathmore as part of the Chain of Ponds strategy, as well as some items under FAIR, including review the current disability action plan and begin community consultation for the new disability action plan. So some really important pieces of work that we've identified under this council plan initiatives that link in with the council plan that we developed as a councillor group at the start of our term. So I'm really excited to see how these pan out, in particular the amendment to support and develop the nighttime economy. That's something we are really lacking here in Moonee Valley in comparison to our nearby municipalities and local government areas. So that's something that I'm really passionate about trying to help develop. So I really am looking forward to seeing how officers progress with that, in particular with our arts and culture plan, to get a little bit more vibrancy and a little bit more activity happening in our areas. So yeah, thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor on this one? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, the budget is a process that councillors can really contribute to setting some direction for which major projects get delivered through the year, and the council plan initiatives is another one of those. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a couple of the initiatives that are not our major budget initiatives. In the FAIR theme, there are two in particular that are about strong engagement with our community. F7.1 is create a new community engagement advisory panel and improve how we consult with residents and community groups. And F8.1 is to co-design and relaunch the Young People's Committee as a steering group for youth-led decision-making and programs with diverse and intersectional membership. Two really critical ways that we can make sure that our council is in lockstep with our community and delivering the things that they truly want and need. Another one is in G3.1 in our green theme, to encourage more households to get food organics and garden organics green lid bins in collaboration with M9 Group of Councils and State Government. I've spoken in the chamber before about the importance of waste and how diverting waste from landfill can really help us reduce our emissions. That's another example of how, work that we're doing operationally is really going to help our community to reduce emissions. That, along with the municipal housing study under B2.1, I think is a really great initiative, and our reconciliation action plan in F1.1 is another really great example about how we're strengthening partnerships with our community, in particular our traditional owner and Aboriginal community. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor? No, Councillor Isa, would you like to close?
Thank you for drawing people's attention to those particular initiatives, Councillor Hodgson. I really look forward to the reports back that we will receive. Is it quarterly reporting, I think, that we receive on these initiatives? And we look forward to seeing them progress. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Look, I'm happy to... Did you have anything else in closing?
Look, I did just want to also draw people's attention to the fact that F1.1, the reconciliation plan, we do look to be endorsing that very soon and beginning action on that. And I was also very grateful to Councillor Hodgson for drawing attention to F7.1 and F8.1, which are around some enhanced modes of engagement, particularly with young people, And so I was very glad that you mentioned those. And also G1.2, which is about funding our projects through the Community Climate Emissions Reduction Reserve. So they are all very important initiatives that will be undertaken in the next 12 months. I can also note, sorry, we have just lost a councillor, and I am just
That's okay.
padding
Look,
while we try to find him, but I'm
That's okay.
conscious that I can stop at any time.
We still have quorum, so we might. Thank you, Councillor Isa.
Okay.
Yeah. So look, I'm happy to put it. Thank you for the close, and that is pickably good timing. So I will now put that to the vote. Item 9.2. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously by all 9 councillors. Doing well, council. 9.3. The proposed acquisition 1 to 15 Strathade Street, Strathmore. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. And a seconder, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mayor. Open space plays an undeniably important role in our health and wellbeing. Throughout the pandemic, we became increasingly dependent on local neighbourhood parks and green spaces, and subsequently our awareness of the value of open space has been forever heightened. Small pocket parks and local playgrounds at the end of the street are loved by children, by older people, and by anyone who may like peaceful and passive respite in a quiet patch of nature. Strathade Reserve is one such park, loved by locals for half a century, with a playground, majestic gums and a wide horizon looking over Essendon Fields to enhance the feel of freedom and open space. When the owner of the land, the Department of Transport, decided it wanted to sell it, the local community expressed their hope that the land could remain as open space. Unfortunately, due to processes around the transfer of land from one level of government to another, Council has to purchase the land for it to remain as open space. This has led to an ongoing argument between Council and the state government. We are grateful for the $1.3 million state government grant provided to us to purchase half the land, and now it's up to Council to do the right thing by the community, invest in much loved open space. Purchasing the entire site is the best value for money for Council, as evident from the officer's report breakdown, where the cost per square meterage increases the less of the land is purchased. The price that has been negotiated by our very hard-working officers is a savings of $600,000, down from $3.2 million to $2.6 million. This is a fraction of the residential value of the land, valued at over $7 million. The reduction in price is a result of the promise by the Planning Minister to rezone the land to public open space following Council's acquisition of the land. This issue has been taking up time of officers, councillors and local community members for 5 years. I'd like to thank all of the passionate local residents who have told us repeatedly how important this park and all local parks are to them. There's no value in prolonging the dispute any further. Further delays will lead to higher costs. The community has made their views very clear, and I am fully supportive of using Council's Open Space Reserve funding, which is exactly what this fund is there for, to preserve this much-loved open space. This represents a local and state government partnership that I'm very pleased is finally able to be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Sypek.
Once again, Madam Mayor, I'll refer back to the dollar in tax that everyone pays. 69 cents federal, 28 cents state and 3 cents local government. We've been looking after this land for 40 years. 40 years, Madam Mayor, we've been looking after it, cutting it, cleaning it, putting playgrounds on it, and then getting told to take the playgrounds off. We didn't do that. We got told to take it off. 3 cents in the dollar, and I understand what Councillor Adams says, that this is money well spent, and it probably is well spent at the end of the day. But this should have been gifted to Moonee Valley, or gifted to the community, actually. Let me rephrase that. Gifted to the community. 40 years Moonee Valley has looked after this, and now that we have to buy it back. But begrudgingly, I'm happy to support this, but I think this would have been a far better option than 3 cents in the dollar, and that whereas a 28 cents in the dollar would have been far better. I think the community would have been more grateful that it was gifted to them rather than having their rates pay for it. But I'm in support of it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa?
Thanks, Mayor. This particular issue was one of the key issues of 2017 when I started the Moonee Valley blog. It was, in fact, an issue that that got me to the chamber in the first place in 2017. So it's the history over the past 5 years has been very eventful and emotional for, I think, community and for councillors who've tried a number of different ways to resolve a very complicated and vexed issue. And it's been hard on everyone. It's been hard on councillors, it's been hard on officers and hard on the community. And I just want to recognise the work that our new CEO, Helen Swee, and her officers have done over the past year to try to resolve this, because it's not easy trying to negotiate a price, a transfer of land with different departments at the state government level. In 2007, I represented Moonee Valley at an upper house inquiry into the processes around the transfer of land. A report was written, councils trying to make sure that these processes were improved. 15 years later, the processes have not budged, and we're still in the situation where for a transfer of land from one level of government to another, there has to be a transfer of funding. I think on balance, it's okay that we're paying half and the state government are paying half for this particular outcome. I think that's as close a balance as we're going to get after 5 years of trying hard and advocating in different ways. I think it's also, open space that is of value to us. The pandemic reminded us, as Councillor Adams said, the pandemic reminded us of how important open space is to the community. Look, it's, this arrangement about the transfer, it's not perfect. Maybe in another decade things might change. For the moment, though, they're not going to. And this, we are grateful that there is some contribution from the state government to this particular land transfer. Grateful that it will be rezoned as public open space. Grateful to the officers for pushing down the price as much as they can. And most primarily grateful to the community for really standing up for their open space and doing their absolute best to communicate to us over 5 years how important this land is to them. I'm really pleased for them that this is finally coming to a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor on this one? No. Councillor Adams, would you like to close? I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Tyson, Councillor Sypek, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Nation, Councillor Adams, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Byrne. All those against is Councillor Bedio. That motion is carried. Item 9.4 on the agenda is the biannual and partnership recommendation report, and I note that there were some conflicts of interest declared at the start of the meeting. Councillor Nation, Councillor Isa and Councillor Hodgson. And those three will now leave the room. Okay, item 9.4 on the agenda, biannual and partnership recommendation report. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Tyson?
Pass the officer's recommendation, thanks.
And a seconder, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. And maybe just acknowledging the conflicts that the process that we have at council is that if any councillor has any conflict with any applicant of the grants process, that they are ruled out of the process, which obviously casts sometimes a pretty wide net. It is lucky we do have quorum though, which is excellent. The outcomes of the grants are confidential at this stage till the motion is passed, so I can't speak too much to the outcomes, but I would like to thank our both councillors, yourself, Mayor, and our community representatives, Faye Aforozis, Lana Kari, Tony Fisher, Ibrahim Haj, Anita Sri Anada, Heather Watson, and our chair, John Bonacci. Thanks very much for giving up an evening to work with us to get a great result for the community, and I'm looking forward to talking publicly and non-confidentially about the grant recipients soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak on this motion? No, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is Councillor Tyson, Councillor Sypek, Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne. All those against is Councillor Sharp. That motion is carried. Item 9.5, we'll ask for the other councillors to come back in. Okay, we have, that's okay. Item 9.5 on the agenda is a response to notice of motion number 2022-07, review of MBCC Councillor Code of Conduct in 2021. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Mayor, I'd like to move an alternative, if I may.
Thank you, Councillor Isa.
That Council resolves to A, note and receive the report on the review of the Moonee Valley City Council's Councillor Code of Conduct. B, note the recommendations from the monitor at Yarra City Council to prescribe personal criticism by councillors of each other, particularly through social media. C, note the opportunities for further exploration in the Local Government Culture Project Insights Report for fostering early intervention, advice from mayors and clearer dispute resolution procedures. D, note the community has not been consulted with respect to the Code of Conduct and that the Local Government Culture Project Insights Report recommends incorporating the voice of community into candidate and induction training. E, note the absence in Moonee Valley City Council Code of Conduct to references to bullying, cultural awareness, councillor values, fraud and corruption, and complaints handling as set out in attachment 7 to the report. And F, request the CEO provide a further report to council by November 2022 with any recommendations given points B to E above.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Is there a seconder for that motion?
So the final words, Mayor, were just slightly different to the screen.
Sorry, if you can repeat point F then, Councillor Isa.
That's okay. Request the CEO provide a further report to Council by November 2022 with any recommendations given points B to E above.
Okay, thank you. As per on the screen, is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Tyson. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
I thank the officers particularly for undergoing such a rigorous cross-checking of our Code of Conduct against several other documents. There's a really useful attachment 7, I think it was, that has a great table showing how various issues are dealt with at different councils and in different, and that's a really terrific resource. From that table, it's evident that there are some areas that other councils have some clauses on or some notes on that are absent from our particular Code of Conduct. I do acknowledge and recognise that it's awkward for council officers to necessarily put words into councillors' mouths around the code of conduct, and that putting in place our code of conduct is something that that we do at the beginning of our term, and that it's something that we do as a shared councillor group. So I recognise that asking officers to provide this information, that there's some reticence from officers to make particular recommendations about our code of conduct. So really this motion, this alternative motion, just notes a couple of things that have become apparent over the last little while. There's some interesting comments that have been made in relation to another council about their code of conduct. There's some interesting comments that have come through the Local Government Culture Project Insights report. And there are, as I said, some notes in, or some things in attachment 7 that our code of conduct doesn't cover. So in this motion, I am requesting the CEO, while recognising that the current notice of motion is closed off, requesting that the CEO bring some further recommendations given those more recent documents that are in the sector at the moment. It's evident that councillor conduct and local government culture are really topical issues for the local government sector at the moment, and our efforts to continue to improve our culture are shared across a number of councils and probably across the whole sector, including the bodies that help to look after local government. So we're in no way in isolation in trying to do our best on this particular topic. It's something that all councils are dealing with. I also just note, though, that one of the things that the original notice of motion looked at was our community expectations of our conduct. And I acknowledge the officer's response to that being that it's a difficult thing to do, to engage with the community on councillor conduct, and really recognise that difficulty. I do note though that the Local Government Culture Project Insight report did pick up on that as well, that somehow finding a way to incorporate the voice of community into setting up our cultural expectations is important, and there's recognition in that report that something's missing there. And however that bridge is crossed, again, it's probably a sector-wide solution, not necessarily a solution just for Moonee Valley. This is an issue that's ongoing, it's sector-wide. I think it's worth us continuing to try to do the best we can in this particular regard. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Tyson? No. Any other councillor? Councillor Bedio?
I personally will struggle to support this motion. I personally will struggle to support this motion, not because I don't believe as a councillor we should conduct ourselves with moral ethics and in the best, with the best for the community in mind. But I think, and what I've experienced as a first-term councillor, is the difficulty we have in doing our day-to-day jobs. If you were to compare it to a state politician or a federal politician, we're very restricted with what we can do and what we can say in any case, and that, I feel, makes it difficult for me to do my job. I mean, in terms of conflict of interest provisions, I understand why they're there, but a lot of us are scared to go to events where we should be representing our community and showing face because we're scared that we're going to be pulled up for being for a conflict of interest. I'm really scared to potentially put parameters around our actions that could mean that we restrict debate or that we make it hard to do our job. And I see there's some certain things in here that potentially leak into, does certain things that are done in our private life, does that potentially impose on our code of conduct to some degree? I'm really scared at the increasing restrictions on us as councillors and how that's going to impact on us in doing our job. I'd say that everyone here, everyone around this table is in council for the right reasons. It's a very difficult job. But I think it's being made more difficult. And I don't think necessarily the state government should be looking at councillor conduct. I think to some respect they should be looking at themselves. So I'd be interested to see a state government culture project to see what people think. Same with the federal government. I mean, they don't even have, there is no such thing as a conflict of interest provision necessarily for the federal government. Would like to see a federal IBAC or a federal ICAC, because I know the scrutiny that all of us are put under. And I don't necessarily think it's fair. So unfortunately, I can't support this, not because I don't think that we as councillors should be held to a high degree of conduct. I certainly think we do, and I think we all around the table do operate to the best of our abilities, but I just think it's getting out of control.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor? No. Councillor Isa, do you wish to close?
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Bedio. The Code of Conduct itself, the conflict of interest provisions are in the Local Government Act, and while the Code of Conduct, I think, might mention them just in passing, it's really not a key concern of the Code of Conduct. The Local Government Act takes care of that, so there's nothing in this that's going to that particular aspect of our regulation. And look, I completely agree with you that there need to be better frameworks for federal and the introduction of a federal anti-corruption body. Absolutely agree that that's necessary. I'm not sure that is a reason to not continue to just look at the ways that we can better our practice. It would be great if Moonee Valley was held up as having, you'll see in the report that there's no best practice code of conduct available. You know, it'd be great if Moonee Valley's code of conduct could get to the point as being held up as the best practice code of conduct for the sector. The alternative isn't asking for anything other than for the CEO to have a look at those other references and just bring any recommendations to us. It may be that over the next 6 months there's some further actions that come out of the local government culture project. I think from the table it demonstrates that there are some gaps in our code of conduct, and I think we owe it to ourselves and our community and our own high standards to just keep pursuing if there are any further improvements that we can make. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Byrne. All those against? It's Councillor Tyson, Councillor Sypek, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Bedio. That motion is carried on the casting vote of the Mayor. Item 10 on the agenda is notice of motion, and we don't have any. Councillors, item 11 is urgent business. Do we have any urgent business? No. Item 12 is confidential reports, of which we don't have any. So then that brings us to item 13, which is the close of the meeting. So thank you everyone for joining us online. Thank you for everyone in the chamber, and it is 12 minutes past 8 and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.